testing, we are told from various sources, is confirming that Osama bin Laden, the man who has altered the course of history, a man who has been responsible directly or indirectly for thousands, tens of thousands of lives lost in Afghanistan and in terror actions around the world. He is
United States going after this iconic figure, and Osama bin Laden is dead. So I think there will be some rallying around that, unfortunately. One thing I was going to say, George, is one of the reasons they've been meeting in the White House for the past few days, as Brian mentioned, is that they have been looking at the DNA. They wanted to make certain this was Osama bin Laden. This is why these meetings were so secret. Just last week, they wanted, and the president now is clearly giving more detail about what exactly happened, how it happened. I think the strike that had happened several days ago, and I believe there were 25 people killed. As you know, hundreds and hundreds of militants have been killed in these strikes in Pakistan over the years. And we know very little about those strikes. We know very little about who was killed in those strikes, but very, very good news.
And that's an excellent point, Mark, because, Brian, in several cases in the past, when top al-Qaeda operatives were believed to have been killed, it turned out not to be the case. This is when you could not afford to
be wrong. And in this case, after 9/11, one of bin Laden's sisters died of cancer in Boston. The FBI got a subpoena for her brain, which they took from the Boston hospital to Washington. And that's the basis for the DNA match that they had in the laboratories, should they give a bin Laden hit. And that's how they would do it. They would match it with DNA to get a positive ID. And generally with these strikes by the drones, the CIA has people on the ground nearby to confirm or to find out actually what happened. So this sounds to me as if they have solid confirmation based on eyewitness accounts and also with the DNA.
Jake Tapper at the White House.
So one of the things that's remarkable about this is that, George, it's going to be such a surprise for so many of the American people. In 2004, roughly two-thirds of the people, according to a Gallup poll, indicated that they thought it was very likely, or likely, that Osama bin Laden would be captured or killed. By last fall, it was the exact reverse. 67% said they didn't think it was likely at all. So for most Americans, this news will come as a huge, obviously welcome surprise. Now, President Obama, when he was a candidate, said, we will kill bin Laden. We will crush al-Qaeda. He said that in a debate in October 2008, but since becoming president, he has not used that rhetoric in public. At the same time, the Obama administration has been rapidly and massively increasing the number of Predator drones that they have been using to attack al-Qaeda and al-Qaeda targets, extremist targets, in Pakistan through a campaign that the U.S.
Fomented terror around the globe. He's attempted to strike again here and elsewhere on the face of this planet. He has, in many ways, colored everything that's happened over the last decade. Now comes the confirmed word from multiple sources that Osama bin Laden, General Jack Keane, is finally dead. Now, having been in the Pentagon, General, on that day, you know, when you remember the wound that was inflicted on that building and on your fellow members of the armed forces and the civilians who work for the armed forces in the Pentagon, I just need more from your soul, General, about what this means to you and to the United States generally.
Well, you know, it'll never bring back the loss that we suffered, certainly. But only one way that this had to end, and that is the fact that he gets killed for the horror that he's done, and he gets killed at the hands of the United States. And I think that is very appropriate. I'm hoping that the moderate Muslims in the world stand up and rise up and speak very affirmatively and positively about this outcome as well.
I hope it relieves some of them from their own psychic burden. And General McInerney, General Kane, if you could stay on the phone, I'm with General Thomas McInerney, 3-star retired General, Air Force General. You have, you know, is this now a game changer? Gaddafi, when we were speculating that it was about Gaddafi because of the coincidence of the airstrike on his family's compound that allegedly killed his son and 3 grandchildren today, you suggested to me that it was not a game changer in Libya per se because the fighting would go on, that the violence would continue, the disruption, the anarchy, etc. Now, assuming, as we do, that he was more a figurehead leader in more recent years, and aside from being physically infirm, do you assume that this is a game changer, if not militarily, at least psychologically, in what is a battle of wills in many ways?
Who they know. It's a great diagram and just an amazing accomplishment.
An amazing accomplishment, and it will be interesting to see in the coming days whether anyone comes forward to collect that $25 million reward.
Yes, it will be. Certainly no one has before then. They've never been motivated to do that, and if they try to collect that $25 million reward, I'm sure they'll get it very quickly. But as far as I know, this is very good intelligence work, and they just keep at it.
And David, you were talking earlier about the 9/11 families who never gave up. This hunt, either for Osama bin Laden, we're coming up now on the 10th anniversary of those 9/11 attacks. How different that anniversary will be this year now that Osama bin Laden is dead.
An incredible difference, particularly when you mark a decade that these families have waited for some sort of justice. Jake mentioned the polling as recently as this last fall that 30% of Americans thought bin Laden would never be captured or killed. And he continued to taunt the United States, as you know, with those audio tapes. There were 3 just in the last year. The most recent was in March, where he threatened to kill captive Americans if Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was killed, the mastermind, of course, of 9/11. And you've got to be thinking about these families tonight. Just this evening on World News, we profiled a teenage boy who unveiled his documentary in New York this week at the Tribeca Film Festival. He grew up down in lower Manhattan. He was a kindergartner when those towers were falling that morning. He saw it happen. He saw the people jumping from the offices. There was a firefighter running to the scene who said to him as a little boy, "Grow up to be a good man." He said it never left him, and that's what drove the documentary. And I think that's the sort of sentiment you'll hear over and over again as we continue to report out this story in the next 24 hours. But this was a night, this was a headline that American families, the relatives of those 2,974 victims have been waiting for now nearly a decade.
And Brian and Ross, there not only had the United States lost the trail of bin Laden at various times, there had also been reports that he had died perhaps of kidney failure.
Right, there were concerns about his health. Supposedly he had been